Today's topics that we're going to just jump in and get started with are going to be how to help your dog settle while you are at home. We had people asking about what they're doing with their dogs now that their dogs think they have a human around 100% of the time. We had some questions about how to decrease some of the separation anxiety that some of our new puppies are having. When you get a new puppy and they are now home with you all of the time, and this is not totally normal, what are we going to do to help decrease that? We got some questions about barking. I'm sure you're noticing your dogs barking quite a bit more than you would if you're not home. So dogs barking at other dogs and people passing through the house. We're going to talk about that. And then more of a straightforward training topic on how to tackle our recalls. Okay, so since many of you wrote in about a specific behavior problem, we're going to tackle these topics pretty broadly and go through general tips that might benefit most dog owners who may be experiencing something similar. Again, if you need some specific help, we do offer some virtual consultations to get you specific help for your family. And since most of the questions that we had were about behavior modification, I want to just talk a little bit about that first. So when we want to change a behavior that our dog's exhibiting, an undesired behavior for us, there's three parts that we want to look at to change it, and they're kind of known as the 3 M's. So we're looking at motivation, which is why is the dog behaving the way that they're behaving? Before tackling any issue, we do want to make sure that your dog is physically and mentally healthy and that its needs are being met. So if this is a sudden onset of behavior, like your dog is all of a sudden acting aggressively or is doing something they've never done before and it seems pretty weird, please check with your veterinarian. It may be due to an underlying medical issue. We want to clear that first. Since today we are going to really kind of just assume that our dogs are physically and mentally getting their needs met. So we want to also look at motivation as are they eating, drinking, sleeping, going to the bathroom normally? Have there been any changes to their environment? Suddenly, did you just move? Did construction start outside your house? Did you get welcome a new family member in, a baby, someone moved in, a new animal? And when your dog is performing the behavior that you don't want them to perform, is it because they are accidentally getting reinforced for it? So we'll talk about that in a second as well. Our second M is management. So management is there a way that we can change the environment surrounding the behavior or the circumstances surrounding the behavior to make the behavior stop happening? Management is pretty much getting your dog to stop practicing that behavior that we don't want them to practice. So the more that they get to practice their behavior, the more solid that the neural pathway in their brain is forming from trigger to behavior. And we want to stop that. So if there's anything that we can do to modify the environment or change the circumstances that would eradicate the behavior, we're going to look there. And then our third one is modification. Can we modify the behavior to be more desirable? Can we substitute a more desirable behavior to take place of the undesired behavior? And are we able to create a positive emotional response where a negative one currently exists? So those are the 3 pieces that we look at when we tackle our behavior modification. So we're going to use this framework as we go forward. And to be honest, most of the behavior problems that you face really can be fixed with identifying what is motivating the dog and managing the environment. So, talking about our first topic today is now that you're working from home and your dog wants to play all of the time, even after exercise and training, and they just can't settle. So many of us are experiencing this for the first time, being that we're all kind of stuck home more than usual. And many others of us are really used to this, having worked from home for a while. And we want to take a look at why this could be happening. So we're going to look at the motivation, a little bit about our dog's perspective. So you are so exciting. You're your dog's best friend. You're now around all of the time, which means to your dog, you just have time to play with them. Your routine might be a little bit different, and consistency is a really big factor to all animals, but dogs particularly. And your dog may not have learned how to self-settle when you're around, as if you're just getting home from work, usually that's the time that you hang out with your dog. And usually quiet time for your dog is when you're not around. So we also want to look at if we are accidentally reinforcing this behavior. So when your dog whines and cries and barks at you, do you cave and just start to play with them, or give them a treat, or do something else? I don't blame you if you do. That's natural. You should do that. We don't want our dogs in distress. However, our dogs are better than us at playing the long game. So we want to be a little bit better at our management and our training, so that we can set our dogs up for success and feeling comfortable. We might be accidentally giving them treats when they have whined for long enough, and your dog learns that whining for X amount of time gets them attention. So let's come at it from a more proactive way. And here are our tips for that. Keeping a consistent schedule. So making timing and the environment predictable for your dog is going to give them a framework and help them learn when is quiet time and when is playtime. So keeping yourself on a schedule, even if your routine has shifted, is going to help. And we want to make sure that our dogs get plenty of exercise, training, mental stimulation, and ways to do food puzzles or help them settle. When you end a play session with your dog, something that could be super fun and active, you're going to want to give them something that they can then go settle and do on their own. So instead of like, oh, we had this fun time, now I'm doing this at my computer, your dog doesn't quite understand why there is such a shut off for you. And for them, they're like, well, we were just playing. Why are we doing this? So what we're going to do is, after a walk or a playtime or a training session, maybe leave them with a good chew item, a bully stick, a yaki stick, a Kong stuffed with some peanut butter, maybe a food dispensing toy, so that they are able to do something on their own and kind of bridge that gap from engaging with you and being by themselves. The next tip would be to set up a nice safe area for your dog to be in. So this could be their crate. It could be a gated off area. It can be anything that could be comfortable and they can't get into trouble. This is also useful anytime. So if you had a dog who is always bugging you when you're cooking dinner or gardening or trying to watch TV or just working from home, that they should have their own place that's safe and fun and that they know how to relax in. So again, we would put some, like, their bed in this spot, leave them with some toys, water, something that they can settle down with that is not related to you. So you want to set up a safe place there. And the other thing is, if your dog is going to be destructive in that space, so you can't really leave them alone, maybe they're uncomfortable in a crate, or if you leave them gated off into a room, they're going to get into trouble, that you can train them to use a tether. So a tether is using their leash and attaching it to a piece of furniture or a hook in the wall, and training them to be comfortable with only a certain amount of space that they can have access to. This is also could be great if you want to be in the same room with your dog while you're getting some work done. You put their bed by the wall or by you, train them to be on a tether. They can't really get too far. And the other tip for this is training go to place or go to your mat cue. So this is a cue for your dog to go relax on a mat or a bed or blanket or towel. And it's something that we do actively train. So it means go lie down over there for an extended amount of time. So this is something that we work on in training. And usually you would grab a handful of treats, get your dog onto a bed or a mat, put some treats onto the mat, and then keep redirecting them over there. We do have some specific instructions on how to train this. I don't have a demo dog today, so I can't show you that one, and some of the other training exercises that we're going to be talking about through this, but I do have some handouts. So if at any point, any of these things that we mentioned, any of these training concepts today, if you would like some more specific instruction about just how to train a go to your place, if you'd like some Kong recipes, Kong.com has some great recipes on there, or any of the other specific training methods, we probably have some handouts for it. So if you'd like to email us at obedience@animalwelfaresociety.org, I'm happy to forward some information along to you. Okay, so that's some tips on how to get your dog to settle and be on their own while you're working from home. Which kind of leads us to topic number 2. What happens if your dog is very uncomfortable, not just won't settle because they're bugging you and want to play all the time, but because they really are uncomfortable being left alone? So this is a common issue that we are asked to help with all of the time. People usually call about separation anxiety. I'm not going to address clinical separation anxiety here today, as it is a long and complicated topic and very unique to each individual dog. But as a lot of us have some new puppies that just came home and we're home with them all the time, we do want to encourage them to be comfortable and confident on their own without us. So this is more for the people whose dogs follow them around like shadows when they're at home. And this is going to sound a little similar to our settling. First, we're going to create a safe haven for our dogs. And creating a safe haven means you have a specific area that has their food and toys and a bed and is just theirs. We can use this for reactive dogs, or we can use this for dogs with separation anxiety. That is their own space. It is comfortable. And you would start by training this while you're in the room with them, but kind of ignoring them a little bit. So you're in the small space, they have a bed, they have their toys, you give them something to chew on, and maybe you're just sitting and reading or looking at your phone. And then you might walk out on the other side of the gate or just out of the doorway and right back in. And you're going to spend about 5 minutes a day doing this until you can spend a little bit more time outside of the room than inside of the room, because your puppy or dog, new dog, is able to understand it's no big deal, you're coming right back. So, and I do have a full handout on creating a safe haven for your dog if you're interested. The other thing is coming at it from more of an obedience way and training your dog to stay. So the stay cue means park your butt right there and don't move until I tell you. Now, for long term, we don't want to tell our dog to stay and then leave for 3 hours. It's not quite fair, and we want them to make sure they're a dog. But it is an easy way to start teaching our puppies that we're leaving and coming back, and we're coming back quickly. So this is starting our baby steps of how to train a stay. And I can kind of talk you through this one pretty easily. We're going to start with some distance and duration with our dogs. So I would put your puppy or dog on a bed blanket. You can ask them to lie down, you can ask them to sit, or they can just stand, whatever's most comfortable for them. I'd grab 5 very small pieces of treat and have them in your hand. Ask your dog to stay and just feed them 5 treats individually, and then tell them all done and give them a pat, or just give them a little bit of a release. Grab 5 more treats and try it again. If your dog can stay still while you are standing right in front of them and just handing them 5 treats individually, then you're going to move on to the next step, which is going to take a step back. So you're going to get your 5 treats again. You're going to put your dog in a stay. You're going to take a baby, like just a little rock step back, and right back in and treat them at their mouth. So you're going to do that for 5 treats and then give them the all done. Eventually, you're going to increase the amount of steps that you can take, and being able to do an out of sight stay where you can tell your dog to stay, walk out of the room, walk back in, is a great way to prep them that you can be out of sight and we're going to come back to you. So it's a good preparation step for being comfortable being left alone. And the other thing is, most of the time that our dogs who have separation anxiety do have some confidence issues. The ones who, and I'm using separation anxiety, I really mean dogs who are just uncomfortable being left alone, not clinical separation anxiety. And if they're following you around like a shadow, we want them to feel confident that they can do things and be successful, not right by your side, which is the opposite of most dog families, who you do want to train your dog to be by your side so that they're comfortable there and come back to you. But that's in topic 4 today. So for our little shadow dogs, positive reinforcement obedience training, gentle force-free methods to encourage them to do the behaviors that we're asking for, building lines of communication, and really agility training. I love doing some mind and body awareness for our dogs to help build their confidence and get them working a little bit away from us where they know we're there, but they're doing some other things on their own. So that's another way that's not directly related, but will help with our shyer dogs, our dogs who don't have a lot of confidence and want to learn how to be comfortable on their own. Cool. All right. Topic 3 today, another really popular topic is barking. So dogs bark for so many reasons. Today we're just going to tackle the ones that are kind of closely related to at home, which is your dog barking at people or dogs who may be passing the house or dogs that they hear that they bark in response to. So we're going to call that alert barking, although it may be more related to reactivity or feeling frustrated that they can't get to see any of their dog friends. But for this reason, you can use the tips the same way. Obviously, if your dog is in distress, we're going to want to address that more specifically. Okay, so with alert barking, your dog is telling you, hey, someone's here and you need to pay attention, and I'm just going to keep barking because now I first was alerting you and now I'm really excited. And a lot of dogs have a hard time stopping once they get started. Barking is a self-reinforcing behavior for many dogs, and we want to make sure that we can kind of break that habit. So management is key here to help understand how to decrease the barking. The more they practice barking, the more they will bark. So if you can prevent your dog from having access to the front windows or storm door, if they are just sitting on the back of the chair barking, they're going to keep barking. So if you just let them have full access to the house, they like to perch in the front window and bark at everything that passes. That's the first part that we're going to change. So we're going to try to prevent access, and you can do that in a few ways. If you're just sitting in with them, you can have them on a leash or a tether like we talked about earlier. You can also use some baby gates to prevent them from like hot zone areas that they may be barking, running to the door, running to the windows and barking. Baby gates are good. I also really like those frosted glass window clings. So the things that you can peel and stick in your window that may give a little bit of a visual barrier. If your dog is particularly noise sensitive, so if they are hearing things outside, not necessarily seeing them, and then barking in response to that, I like to encourage to play some music or some white noise in the house to create a sound buffer that will help take a little bit of the edge off around all of the small noises, so they may not bark as much. So that's the first step, is can we manage the environment to minimize the amount of triggers that your dog's barking and practicing to. And the more we can manage the environment, the more we can then gently expose them and then respond appropriately to help train them. Hey, thank you for barking, but I've got this. So what I like to do is train your dog to do a different job instead of barking while acknowledging that they barked. So your dog sees someone passing, they bark. After a bark or two, I usually like to say thank you and then call them to do something else. You can call them to go to place or go to your mat like we talked about earlier, but one of my favorite cues is to talk about the touch cue. So that is having your dog come touch their nose to your hand, which is a great little recall, which we're going to talk about next. But it's also just a great different job for your dog to do. It brings them over to you. Once you have them at you, you can decide what you'd like to do, whether you'd like to go outside, go for a walk, just break the barking in general because it gives them another job to do, something else to think about for a minute. You can ask for a sit. You can ask for many other behaviors that your dog knows. Touch is just my favorite one, and I think the quick and easy one. If you would like some specific steps on how to teach touch, I do have handouts for that, and you can please email us or send us a Facebook message, and I will send any instructions or training videos as we go along with it. The other part of this, another behavior that will help decrease the barking, once it's started is having a reliable recall. So when having your dog come to you when they're called, no matter what's happening in their environment. So that's a different behavior as well. And what you'll notice is if you can prevent the amount of triggers and then give them another job to do, over time, you're going to notice a lot less barking. So the barking should decrease if you interrupt it and prevent it from happening in the first place. And then our final topic today is training a reliable recall. So this is more of our straightforward, this is just a training. How do we train our dogs to come back to us when we call them? It's a big reason that our families come to obedience classes. It's also one of the trickiest things. So I want you to think about this for a second. When you call your dog to come, what is your dog doing? Are they smelling something awesome? Are they playing with other dogs? Are they chasing a rabbit or a squirrel? Are they maybe munching on some delicious poop somewhere? So are they doing something that is really natural to be a dog and something that's really reinforcing for them? And then when you do call them, and maybe they're doing these things, what happens when your dog comes back? Does their fun end? Do they have to stop playing with other dogs or playing or chasing anything? Do they have to go somewhere scary? Do they have to get in a car that's uncomfortable? Do they have to go to the groomer? Do they have to get a bath? And go to the vet's office? And how's your tone? Do you scold them when they come back because they didn't listen fast enough? Does the tenor of your voice increase as you keep calling them? And if you answered yes to any of those questions, that's why training recalls are difficult. Is because we're not looking at it from the dog's perspective and we're just expecting them to come back when they're called every single time. So we need to kind of change this a little bit. We want our dogs to think that coming back to us is the best thing in the world. It is so fun. You're happy, they're happy, it's a party. Anything could happen. So we start small when we train this. You're going to have some really good treats, like really good stuff, like your leftovers from dinner, meatballs, chicken, salmon, whatever, cheese, anything that's delicious. And you're going to practice in really small ways where you can control the environment. So you're going to have their leash on, the regular 6-foot leash, and call them to come. You might jog a few steps backwards to create a little bit of a chase there, and then treat and reward them handsomely when they get to you. Super party. It's the most fun ever. And then you're going to use a little bit of a longer leash. And then you're going to let them sniff a little bit. And then you're going to take it outside and try it outside. And then you're going to try it inside and see if you can do it without the leash on. And then you're going to try it outside in a small fenced-in area and see if you can do it without the leash on. The important part is that you're practicing often. Every time you call your dog and they come back, it is a reward. You're using a happy voice. You are giving them lots of treats for just the one time you don't have any treats. This is a cue that really can save your dog's life. I've had many clients who have said their dogs were running into the street, and because they practice recall so often, their dogs, were narrowly missed being hit by a car or running into another dog in person or something that was going to be fun for the dog and not so fun for the after effects. But because they trained such a reliable recall, they were able to have the tools there. And we train it by building that relationship with our dog that when we call them, it is fun and it is better to listen to that than not to listen. So that is how we play. We play with many different games. I do have a handout about some great games that you can play with your dog for reliable recalls. Also, can't wait until we can get together in person and practice our recalls in the future. So that is what I have for you today. If anybody has any questions, I have 4 more minutes if you want to put them in the comments. Anything you want me to see or talk about today? Not so much. We are going to be doing this every Thursday at 4 p.m. If you have any questions, if you want any of the handouts that we talked about, I do have handouts for the 3 M's of behavior modification, creating a safe haven, reading a dog's body language to identify any anxiety behaviors, how to train a tether, some crate training tips for if you're going to use a crate or a gate, some gate training tips as well. Training your dog to stay, how to go to a mat, teaching touch, and games for reliable recall, all which I can't believe we covered in the last 27 minutes. So I do have those materials. You can email us obedience@animalwelfaresociety.org, or you can message us here on Facebook, and we are happy to see. Okay, let me see. Oh, I didn't realize I wasn't scrolling. We have a question: when will remote consults become available? They should be starting next week. So hopefully as of Monday. You can check the animalwelfaresociety.org, and in the training tab for animal training, you'll be able to see our Facebook Live events as its own page and the virtual consult. So that is what we have. Our virtual consults will probably be offered at half an hour, and we can do them as phone calls or through any face-to-face through the computer. And you will get information after your lesson as well, detailing the training plan that we've discussed. Cool. That seems like everybody. Oh, I have another question. I wish it self-scrolled. Okay. My favorite food puzzle. Oh, that's a good one. I mean, I'm a classic Kong wobbler kind of girl. I like putting their food in a Kong wobbler and having them knock it around until all the food comes out. It's not great if you live in an apartment where everybody else's dogs also will go crazy if they hear the Kong wobbler knocking around. I'm really kind of super interested in Kong.com has a recipes section and just like all of the different food puzzles that they recommend, different recipes for stuffing your Kongs. So that I've been trying out lately as well. Okay. Thank you so much to all my friends who came to say hi. Any of you who I haven't met or talked to yet, welcome, and I look forward to working with you and your dogs in the future. And I hope you have a great rest of your week going into the weekend. Have fun with your dogs. Take it easy. Till next time. Bye.